Now, without further delay, I'd like to welcome back Coach Gaétan Boutin, a human high performance coach and movement specialist, to lead our conversation and answer all your questions this evening. Thank you so much, Coach Gaétan, for joining us.
Amazing. Thanks for having me, Alex, and thanks for having me, Pascoe. As always, I'm super excited to be here. Big shout out before we get started to the whole team at Pascoe. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. They've done a great job of putting these events together, these conversations together, and they've, given me a chance to speak and share some of my knowledge and some of my experience. So thank you to you guys out there. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. We were just talking, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. And if you're here right now, I say hats off to you, because what that means is you're committed and invested in your health. When all the other distractions are going on in the world right now, you are here and you are committed to your health. So big shout out to everyone who's on right now, and excited for anyone else who's going to jump on. So as Alex mentioned, tonight is going to be part 3 of our human performance coaching series. If you missed part 1, which was building a strong mindset, and you missed part 2, which is a movement success plan, both of those were, not to get too excited about it, to get ahead of myself, but they were amazing conversations with great questions. So feel free to go back to pascoe.ca in the webinar section, and you can watch the recordings of those. So they are still available for you to watch. It's important, I think, that you see all of them, because you see how all of these things start to come together. And it's not just one thing working that's going to help your wellness or your well-being. It's kind of all of these things working together. And anyone who knows me, who works with me, knows that I'm a big believer in it's the sum of all of the parts working together. It's going to move the needle and create the result, not just isolating one thing. So that's very important. So again, today we're going to talk about building life-saving nutrition habits. Okay, I almost felt like this could be the number one part of our conversation of this whole thing, because nutrition is so important to me. So for those of you who don't know who I am, basically I'm an elite human high performance coach. I have a degree in kinesiology, health sciences, neuromuscular physiology. I'm a strength coach. I'm a sports nutrition expert. I'm a high performance mindset coach, and I'm a co-founder of a company called Strong Athlete, where we basically help people become the best version of themselves. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior or an everyday Joe, as we'd call them, or a grandmother or a grandfather, like, we work with everyone of all ages, because we think everyone could benefit from the things that we do. And the things that we do are basically those 5 things that kind of we've been talking about in this coaching series. And today we're going to focus again on nutrition. Nutrition is what I call a lifelong journey. I've been on a lifelong journey, not to date myself, but I've been on a lifelong journey of nutrition probably for about 30 years. I was overweight as a kid. I went through this phase of being this athlete, and then when my body started to change, for some reason I put on all this weight, and I was very uncomfortable with myself, and I was exercising hard and doing all those things as an athlete, but I was overweight and I couldn't figure it out, as active as I was. And that kind of led me down this path of nutrition. And at the time, my best friend's dad was a professional athlete, and we'd go to his house and he'd have this literally this cart of supplements. It was literally just full of supplements. And I was just amazed by it. And I would literally go to his house and I would pick up every supplement and like look at it and like, what's this? What's that? And this is before we had the internet, or cyborg devices, as I call them, which is smartphones, where we're basically a robot. When you have your smartphone, you're essentially a robot, because you can type in and get answers right away. It's as if you have the brain of a computer. So at that point, I didn't have access to immediate information. I'd be asking questions. What's this? What's vitamin C? What's biotin? What's vitamin D? What's magnesium? What's all of these things? And I started to kind of get this real interest in this grasp for nutrition. And that led me down this, again, lifelong journey of eating. And I started eating and really focusing on food when I was like 12 years old. And I'll never forget, like, My mom had said to me one day, we're eating some type of like takeout or fast food that I was just kind of tired of eating that stuff. And she said, you don't like it, make it yourself. And at that point, I just, again, went on this mission of like learning how to cook, learning how to prepare food, starting to source food and understand my body type and understanding what I was doing from a physical standpoint and how I need to refuel that. And that's never stopped. I've been continuing to do that and grow and learn. And I always say one of the most important things that's going to determine your health and wellness is your nutrition. I'd say you can work out as hard as you want. You can take supplements. I kind of separate supplements from nutrition, and we're going to talk about both of those things today. You could take all the right supplements. You can work out as hard as you want, but if your food is not on point, you will never reach this potential of possibility of how great you can be. So if there's one thing that I suggest you put a lot of love and energy and possibility and positivity into, it's the things that you're eating. Because as they say, you are what you eat, and let's go a few levels deeper than that. You've also heard you are what you eat eats, meaning if you're eating meat, whatever that animal ate, you're becoming part of that. If you're eating plants, however those plants were fed, you're becoming part of that. So in addition to you are what you eat and you are what you eat eats, I always say you're also what you drink, because sometimes that gets pushed to the wayside. Liquids don't seem to fit into this category of nutrition for some reason in many people's mindset, but that's a huge part. And then now, like on the deepest level, in my opinion, you are what you digest. So you can be eating all these foods, but if you're not digesting them, you're only going to get like the smallest benefit that is possible from the foods that you're getting. So again, you are what you eat, and that's about finding the best quality sources and what they eat and knowing that information, and then really emphasizing your digestive system. I think for me is the root of all things. Whenever I start with anyone, whether they're a world class athlete or just kind of an everyday person, first thing we start talking about is digestion, and we start talking about gut health, and we talk about how those things are going to impact their wellness. And I think a lot of people have no clue that their gut health and what they're eating is affecting their mood, it's affecting their energy, it's affecting their outlook on life. They think that, well, I'm down, I'm depressed, I must have, a condition or it's genetic. I believe that a lot of those things can be not treated, but helped with proper nutrition. And at least we see at that point, if you're eating well and you're still dealing with difficult things, then it makes sense to go deeper and look at other options. So again, nutrition as a whole, to me, the most important thing you can put your energy into, your time, your money, all of those things, your investments, if you put that into nutrition, like I'll promise you, you'll live an exceptional life. And I'm a huge believer in that. So that's kind of my introduction to the whole thing. This is a Q&A, so it's a live Q&A, and I really want to get into questions. So we have Alex, and Alex is going to be kind of queuing up the questions. So we'll
Hi.
get started on some of those.
Yeah, we'll get started. We already have a question here from Elaine, and she asks, why is protein so important, and how much protein should people be eating each day?
Hmm. Okay, so debatable in my opinion. I think protein is the foundation of every nutrition plan. I always start when I build a program for someone, I always start with the protein. That's kind of the foundation. I mean, I calculate that out. And to give you an idea of an amount, it's very open-ended depending on your lifestyle, depending on your body type. Lifestyle meaning like you train, do you work out, do you exercise, are you active, how old are you, do you have health history? But to give you an idea, personally, I recommend anywhere from, this is kind of a big range, um, zero point 0.4 grams up to 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein. So just loosely, if you weigh 100 pounds and I recommend it 0.5, you're going to get 50 grams of protein per day. Most people don't weigh 100 pounds. So let's say you weigh 150 pounds, you're basically going to get half of that number, and that's going to basically be your protein. So that gets you what, 75 grams of protein. So it's very important because protein is amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks of pretty much everything in your body. They're also metabolically activating, so there's a thermic effect of eating. So if you're trying to, burn calories or lose fat, for example, eating protein will help ignite your metabolism, and it will help you to increase your output or your metabolic output, which will help you burn calories. So protein is very important. It's the building blocks of muscle, hair, skin, nails, all of these great things. So that's why it's super important.
Perfect. On that note, a question from Mitchell. I heard that eggs are not only a source of protein, but are also full of vitamins and minerals. And I also heard that eating too many eggs can increase cholesterol levels. How many eggs are safe, and is it okay to eat them every day?
That question can be a bit of a can of worms. So I'll try not to spend too much time on this question, but that is a great question. So eggs have somehow been given a bad rep in the last few years. There was a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, and I think it was called What the Health. And they used some reference that eggs were equivalently as bad as smoking. Some like ridiculous reference that they use in there, and all of a sudden people are sending me messages, and I'm getting all kinds of messages. Oh my God, eggs, they're like smoking. That's what this show said, and blah blah blah. And I think it's ludicrous. I think it's absurd, to be very honest with you. Let me be very clear. I'm not offering any medical advice in this conversation, but I am going to say that when it comes to eggs, or as I was actually going to say in our previous question, which was about protein, the first question I always ask is, where are you getting it from? So where are you getting your protein from, or in this case, where are you getting your eggs from? If you're just getting like regular eggs from the regular grocery store, like on the discount, I'm not a fan of low quality protein source. Actually, I'm not a fan of low quality any food source. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessively crazy about that stuff. If you are getting eggs from a local farm that has good practices where they feed their chickens with healthy natural feed, non-GMO, organic, ideally the chickens just pick off of the land. They're not fed like a specific diet. They have a variety of things, and they have no hormones, no antibiotics, and they're very healthy. Then if that's the case and that's where you're getting your eggs from, and to be honest with you, I don't accept anything less than that. So that's why I'm answering this question this way. If that's the case, I personally think that you are safe to eat eggs, almost every day. Let's say 5 days a week. I am comfortable doing that. In terms of how many eggs, that goes kind of back to the protein question. I don't like answering how many in a bubble, meaning we have to know, what does your whole day look like? How many grams of protein, for example, are eating in your day? So we figure it out that way. And then to go deeper, yes, eggs are full of all kinds of nutrients. They're very nutrient dense, so that's why I think they're a great food source. They're very versatile. You can eat them in many different ways. And then the last part of that question was talking about cholesterol. And this is kind of the can of worms, and many people will disagree with me on this, and that's totally okay. Um, I believe that a lot of the old cholesterol information is very outdated and very inaccurate. Cholesterol is a hugely debated topic, but people don't realize that, one, cholesterol is essential for hormone development. And when everyone has said that cholesterol is so bad, it's so bad, it's so bad, so people have done all these things to bring their cholesterol down. And I'm talking HDL and LDL. That people know, like high density and low density. Previously, high density was supposed to be good, and low density bad. All of these things. But what they do is they help with hormone development. And as all of these processes have come into play to reduce cholesterol, what we've seen is a rise in hormone depletion with a lot of people. Hormone replacement therapy and hormone issues have become so much more prevalent these days. And I'm not saying it's directly correlated, but it's an interesting thing to look into. I don't think cholesterol is a bad thing. I think a lot of those tests are made for you to be scared. A lot of times there's a prescription that follows that recommendation. Oh, well, you have this, so you should take this prescription. Again, I'm not offering medical advice, but all I'm saying is it's important that you think for yourself. Another thing to consider, if you're on a weight loss program, meaning you're losing fat and you're exercising and you're burning fat, and you go get a blood test, your cholesterol, your blood cholesterol is going to be super high. And that's because there's a lot of fat circulating in your blood because it's going to be burned off and used up. And then people will just, oh my God, your cholesterol's so high, it's bad, and you need to get this prescription. Very dangerous potential conversation. So I always say go deeper on that, ask more questions. And if you want to talk about cholesterol and heart disease, it's been proven that sugar is a bigger cause of heart disease than cholesterol. And if you mix those two things together, high sugar, that's when cholesterol could become an issue. So again, it's a bit of a rant, but my whole point of that is don't just take information for what you see. And that includes what I say. Don't just take what I say and like that's the answer. Go and do your own research, go deeper, and start to understand these things better.
Perfect. I have a question here from Larry. Do you have any tips to minimize the time it takes to cook or prep healthy meals? Oftentimes, fast food is just so convenient.
Okay. Do I have any tips? Yes, I have 100 tips. The first tip is prepare meals in batches. So I'm not a big fan necessarily of like cook all your meals on Sunday, have this whole prep day. Like I personally don't do that because like I don't want to spend my whole day cooking. But what I do is whenever I'm going to cook a meal, I cook it in amount of like three, for example. So let's say I'm making dinner tonight. I made enough for dinner tonight, lunch tomorrow, and potentially either dinner tomorrow night or lunch the following day. So I make things in larger batches. That is key. You have to make things in larger batches so that you have something to fall back on. Another thing is think ahead. Always be thinking ahead. People just try to wing it. And whenever you wing it, you're in trouble. I would say if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. If you just think you're going to figure it out, you're in big trouble. So always be thinking a few meals ahead. And again, what I'm cooking now and how that's going to set me up. Or, we have a lot of athletes that travel and they're on tournaments and they're on the road. Well, they used to be. Unfortunately, right now they're not. But we kind of look ahead of like if you're stuck and you have to eat fast food, what is the best options of the worst? So we kind of give them a plan of what are the best options. The we call them ma and pa type places, the little restaurants, the local restaurants. Those are always your best bet. The really big chains that commercialize food, I've always like be very careful and cautious of. So plan ahead, make meals in batches, and know where you're going to be. And then the last thing with that is if you're really that busy and you're working that much, get a food service. There's a lot of good prepared food services out there. You can order like 10 meals for the week. They come already prepared. You just have to heat them up. Just be cautious of getting something that's of quality. Don't just kind of get the cheapest one because it's no different than fast food. Those are some tips that hopefully those help.
Yep. Larry actually has a follow-up question for you now. What's your
Nice.
favorite meal to prepare in a huge batch?
Oh, amazing. My favorite meal to prepare in a huge batch. Well, that would probably be steak because I had steak tonight and barbecuing a whole bunch of steak. I'll be the guy out there in the snow, like still trying to get my barbecue to get hot. So steak is a good one. Sweet potato is another good one. We use the Instant Pot in our house, and this is not a product plug, but you can just throw a whole bunch of sweet potatoes in there. And if you don't have an Instant Pot, I'll take like 5 sweet potatoes and I'll wash them, prick them, and I'll put them in the oven at like 400 and basically cook them until it looks like caramel is starting to come out of them. That's when you know they're perfect. So those are the two big ones that I love to cook in batches.
I'm a big fan of quinoa.
Yeah,
Quinoa.
quinoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have a question here from Anna. What do you think about restricted diets like keto and the carnivore diet?
This is such an interesting conversation. It's such a hot topic, as you can imagine. I get bombarded with questions all the time. What do you think of the carnivore diet? What do you think of keto diet? And the answer to that is they can serve a purpose. So the most important thing to understand about these things like keto or carnivore diets is they're what I call an elimination diet. So what that means is if you follow those diets properly, the first thing that's happening is you're no longer going to be eating half of the garbage that you were eating before. That's the biggest problem. I think a lot of people eat too much, like I'll call it junk, or too much unnecessary stuff. So the restrictive diets force you to take all that crap out. So you're only eating the carnivore diet, then you're only eating meat. Or in the keto diet, like it's just fat and protein pretty much. And those diets are good sometimes just to clear out all the crap that you've been eating. But in my opinion, they're not the ideal thing to do ongoing. So if you're the kind of person that like, I need a diet to start, I need something very specific, you can start that, but you really need to understand that that's a short-term move, and you're going to need to broaden and branch out and to create more diversity in your nutrition. So the elimination part is the key, and that's why you'll feel better. It's the same with like plant-based diets. Um, I'm not an advocate for plant-based diets necessarily, unless it's a religious thing or something of that nature, then I definitely understand. But from a health standpoint, the reason why people say, well, I went plant-based and I feel so much better, it's because they probably took out a lot of low quality foods that they were eating, and that will help them to feel better. But then in the long term, they could be missing out on a lot of basically nutrients that your body needs from a diverse number of sources.
Perfect. I have a question from Solange. Do you take into consideration a person's body composition when calculating their daily protein target?
Uh, yes, I do. Body composition and body type. But initially, so when I screen someone, the first thing we'll do, well, not the first thing, because it's not that comfortable. I'm a big user of skin fold count. So we do a body fat test, which is body composition. We start to see how much lean mass they have and how much fat mass that they have. And then we'll get a scale weight. And I'm not like super huge on the scale weight necessarily. It just gives us a starting point. And then from there, when we have an idea of fat-free mass and 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 then fat mass, we can program the protein a little bit more towards the fat-free mass instead of the total mass, if that makes sense. Hope that
Yeah,
answers the question. It's a little technical question that might need more a
that's
specific example.
perfect. I have a question here from Jenny. Whenever I eat a dense or large meal, I experience a ton of bloating. Are there any supplements that you would recommend?
So the first thing when we talk about bloating is chances are that you have a food sensitivity. So that's the first thing I would look at and address. Now, the problem with that is there was a lot of these like food sensitivity tests that were going around a few years ago, and I'm not a huge fan of the accuracy. So there's not a ton of accurate ones that are cost effective. There are some, but excuse me, but they're a lot more expensive. So the first thing I would look at with that is what are you eating? And can you narrow it down to whenever I eat X, I get bloated. So for example, like if I eat beans, I don't eat beans or legumes. If I eat them, like I get seriously bloated. So I don't eat them anymore, and I know I don't have that same issue. So once that's in check, a couple of different things you can do for bloating is like digestive bitters or digestive enzymes are both effective. I like bitters better than enzymes. I think they're a little more effective. Pascoe has Amara Pascoe, which I use a lot. So this is a bitter. So basically what that means is you take the dosage about 30 minutes before you eat. And what that does, it helps to stimulate the digestibility of your body, increases like HCl, hydrochloric acid, basically the digestive juices. It helps to get them flowing. And then when those juices are flowing, it helps to improve digestion. A couple other little tricks on digestion is digestion starts in your mouth. So what that means is take time to chew your food more. Don't rush. Don't just try to like get your food in. Like people that are eating and watching TV or eating and they're on their phones, like that's very, very distracting and very hard on your body. Allow your body time to digest. Another thing with like a trick, one of my good friends, Josh Gatalis, he showed me was if you just sit before you eat and you become present to your meal. So don't just like put the plate and start eating. This was a great tip that he gave me, and it was just sit and be present with your meal because digestion starts already. If you see the food and you smell the food and you become present to it, that actually starts the digestion process. It's so you're taking the bitters, you're taking your time, and you're chewing your food. That's really going to help with the bloating. And then, of course, like I said, being cautious of there's certain foods that affect you specifically.
That's great. I have a question here from Diane. What would you say is the most common diet people mistake? Or I'm reading that wrong. The most common mistake that people make while dieting is what I assume it says.
Yeah.
What is the
Okay.
most common mistake people
What's the
make
most
while dieting?
common dieters make or people on a diet make?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay, so my biggest thing is the first mistake is it's going to sound crazy, but I'll explain it, is deciding to go on a diet. We talked about carnivore and keto diets a minute ago, and I just kind of gave you a rough explanation of it. But just to be clear, I am not a fan of diets. I don't prescribe diets. I don't recommend diets because to me, a diet is temporary. And the first mistake that you would make is deciding to go on a diet because when people use that term, it means temporary. It's a short term. Like I'm going to purchase this 6 week diet, 6 week diet program from this expert or this 12-week weight loss diet or whatever that is. It's all temporary in my opinion. So the getting your language right is the most important thing because your language creates your reality, which will create your outcome and your results. So instead of creating a diet or starting a diet, it's how am I going to improve my nutrition? How am I going to improve my eating? How am I going to develop healthy eating? And what is my eating going to look like going forward? So whenever I work with them, we build nutrition plans. We don't build diet plans. That's my number one thing. So to kind of package onto that, it's like I'm saying, it's the duration part. Most people set these small windows of success, like I'm going to follow this for 6 weeks. And if I don't get what I want, it doesn't work. I'm going to quit. Right. So it's these short timelines versus like, well, how long do you want to feel good or be healthy or be lean or whatever that is? Well, if it's not, we talked about this in the movement seminar too. If it's not for the rest of your life, then don't bother because you're not going to maintain it. So that's a couple of things. I have a couple more tips if we want to go because I'm super pumped about these questions. So another thing is dieters make the mistake of weighing themselves every day. Some people recommend this. Some experts in my field are big believers in that. I am not. Your body can fluctuate in weight so quickly. And if you're constantly weighing yourself every day, people are weighing themselves because they want some sort of like idea that they're being successful. Like, oh my God, I wake up tomorrow, I better lose another pound or this program's not working. And oh my God, I woke up, I'm actually a pound up. I gained a pound. What did I do wrong? Oh my God. And they create this like neuroses that just drives them bananas versus like with my clients, it's usually every Friday morning or every other Friday morning, give me your weight. And that forces you to give your body time. And then if you're going up in weight like every week, we know A, you're not following the plan, or B, we need to adjust the plan because it's this long term thing that we've envisioned for you. And that's super important. And then the last thing, I know I'm talking a lot here, but this is an important topic. The last thing is don't do crash extreme programs. So I didn't say diet because I don't like that word. Don't do anything that's like super like low calories, like zero carbs and all these things. Be very cautious of that because if it's not sustainable for the long term, then it's going to be very detrimental to you. If you create something short term that's super aggressive, and then you try to go back to eating how you were, your body is going to be a mess. And you're probably going to, if you're losing weight, you're going to gain back all that weight. and then some. So that's my long-winded answer to that question.
That's great. Thank you. I do have one more question here from Carrie. Gut health seems to be a hot topic recently. Why is it so important, and what are ways we can improve it?
So in the intro of this conversation, I was saying you are what you eat, you are what you eat, you are what you drink. And most importantly, you are what you digest. Your gut health is basically part of your microbiome, which is this system of bacteria, which basically builds your immune system. It allows your body to be resilient. It allows your body to defend itself against attackers and all kinds of things that enter into your body. If your gut health is not strong, in my opinion, you are not healthy. Your health starts, it begins and ends at your gut. It's your first and last line of defense, in my opinion. So, if anything, when you first start a plan, and then what I do with people is my number one priority is to boost up their gut health because it will improve their digestion. It'll improve their ability to absorb nutrients and minerals. It will improve their ability to resist infections and diseases. And it will just improve their mental state. When your gut is healthy, your brain is healthy. And people don't always connect those two things. If your gut is off, you don't feel good, your mood is not going to be good. You'll notice that if you eat certain junk food, like you're going to feel great just from that first stimulation, but then you're going to feel terrible, like almost depressed and miserable because your gut is taking such a toll that it's affecting your brain. And whatever is not being digested or improperly digested, or in the case of like leaky gut, kind of going a bit of a tangent, but that can cause all kinds of damage and free radicals and foreign elements to get into your blood, which are going to affect your brain. So that's a lot of things that can go on if your gut's not healthy. So how do we improve our gut health? Well, obviously eating high quality foods is very important. I'm a believer in eating foods that are rich in probiotics. Uh, Dairy, I'm not a huge fan of all dairy, but if we're looking at things like sheep dairy that's organic, sheep dairy yogurt can be very good. We use a lot of like fermented coconut in my house. So there's like a fermented coconut. It's like a yogurt, very sour, but you're getting a lot of probiotics from that. Uh, Basically, probiotic supplements are good as well. And then there's also something called a prebiotic supplement. So like Pascoe uses something called Marco Fruit, which I have right here, which is pretty cool, which I recommend to a lot of my clients when we first get going. And what that is, it's a prebiotic. So a prebiotic is essentially, in simple terms, it's food that feeds your probiotics or your bacteria in your gut, and that helps them to flourish. So it's basically like you're developing and growing your natural probiotics and bacteria in your gut. So all of these things are essential, feeding it the right things to help that flourish and grow. And then obviously avoiding processed foods, avoiding alcohol or minimizing alcohol, artificial sweeteners, these types of things. Um, a lot of gluten, people are very sensitive to gluten and wheat, which I don't recommend. All of these things start to factor into your gut health. But if your gut is healthy and you make that a priority, you will flourish.
Perfect. And I might just add on there, Coach Gaétan, that Marco Fruct is a powder.
Yeah,
So you would simply mix the powder in some warm water and drink it like a tea. It's made with inulin and chamomile, so it tastes really nice in the morning and evening after dinner, just to calm the stomach as well. Chamomile is a great carminative um, and has a calming effect on the body.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, so now it does look like we have answered everyone's questions for today. I'll give it another second. Otherwise, thank you again to everyone who has joined us and participated in the question and answer session tonight. And a special thank you again, Coach Gaétan, for joining us this evening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Make sure you guys all stay tuned. We're going to be promoting part 4 in the next coming weeks. So you definitely don't want to miss that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have any questions about the information presented in today's webinar, please contact seminars@pascoe.ca. We will also be sharing this recording on our website at pascoe.ca under the webinars tab, and it will be posted one day from now. And in recognition of the time you have invested in attending our webinar this evening, we will we will be emailing participants a 20% discount for Amara Pascoe and Marco Fruct, which is valid until November 10th, 2020. So again, thank you to everyone for joining us, and we do look forward to seeing you at our next live question and answer session with Coach Gaétan, and he will be revealing his secrets about why recovery is the secret to success.
That's a
Thank,
big one. It's going
yeah,
to be a big one.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a great evening.